Now I would like to have a special announcement. I'd like to introduce Amalia Vagts with Extraordinary Lutheran Ministries, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself and our relationship with that organization.
Good morning, everybody. I really want to thank Pastor E2 for giving me a few minutes here to talk with you. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to do four things. I want to thank you. I want to tell you what we've done a bit with support that you've given us over the last few years. I want to tell you what's been happening with Extraordinary Lutheran Ministries, since a lot of people have wondered since 2009 what's happened with this ministry. And then I want to share with you how you can stay involved and continue to support us. So some of you maybe have never even heard of Extraordinary Lutheran Ministries, but about 5 years ago I came out here to Los Angeles because we were doing a major fundraising campaign with all of the national LGBTQ organizations. And I met with a member of this congregation who decided to give a generous gift, and he was inspired to ask someone else to give a gift, and they were inspired to ask someone else to give a gift, and then ultimately this congregation decided to give what was a remarkable contribution of $25,000 to that campaign. And all told, between this group of people and this congregation, Lutheran Church of the Master gave $40,000 to further the cause of social justice for LGBTQ people in this church. And that is the largest single gift that came from any congregation in that campaign. So this little congregation here on Santa Monica Boulevard is connected throughout the Lutheran Church to other organizations and individuals who are working for LGBTQ justice. And I've told that story countless times over the last 5 years, and I've never been able to be here with you in worship until today, and I'm just so glad to be here in this worship space and to be meeting many of you for the first time. So I wanted to thank you for that gift, which happened so long ago, but which has still continued to be a part of this ministry for the last 5 years. And then I want to thank you for the present support that you're giving to Brenda Voss, who I believe you got to hear preach last Sunday. And Brenda, as you know, is doing her internship jointly with this congregation and St. Paul Lutheran Church and a few other congregations in the Los Angeles area. And the financial support and the prayer support that you're giving to Brenda is so important to her ministry. And I'll give you a little bit of a sense in a few minutes about why and how you're helping her. So thank you for that. Please continue to pray for Brenda and for this ministry. So that gift that happened 5 years ago was part of this large movement to create the change that happened in 2009, when the ELCA voted to open its ministry policies to partner gay and lesbian people. It feels like that happened a long time ago, and it also feels like it happened yesterday. So much has happened since 2009. And we could not have done it without your support and with the other congregations and individuals that came together to create that change. So every time you think about being part of a church that continues to open its doors to more people, I want you to know that you were a central part of that happening in the ELCA. Now, what's happened since then? After 2009, some people called me up and said, well, are you out of a job and is the work over? And we really looked at what we were doing with Extraordinary Lutheran Ministries and our effort, which is to specifically support LGBTQ people who are called to rostered ministry in this church, and to support the congregations and ministries who call them. Well, was that work done? We knew it wasn't done, because even though the policy changed in the ELCA, the reality is that it hasn't changed in every congregation across the country. What has changed is that more and more out LGBTQ people are following their call to ministry. Some of them are young people, some of them are people who delayed for years and years that call to ministry because they felt that they couldn't be a pastor in this church, and others are people who were removed years ago from the ELCA roster after coming out as gay, who are now coming back into ministry. So rather than our work going away or getting smaller, our work in fact has doubled. So before 2009, we had 3 primary programs. We had a roster, an ELM roster of LGBTQ pastors, and that was about 46 people at the time of 2009. Since then, we no longer have a roster, but we now have a professional community of all Lutheran roster leaders who publicly identify as LGBTQ. We're right at 117. So just a year and a half after launching that, we have more than double the number of people that we had 2009, and about every 2 days I get an email from yet another person who is joining Proclaim. And just here in Los Angeles area alone, there are 6 people who are part of the Proclaim organization. So you really have a chance to know folks like Brenda and her pastor, Pastor Boleen at St. Paul, and Pastor Steve just up the road, and Pastor Caleb, who was installed yesterday, Pastor Guy Irwin, who serves at Cal Lutheran, and of course I knew I would forget, Pastor Dan Hooper, of course, at Hollywood Lutheran. So right here in this community, you have a chance to know these people who are a part of the national movement of out LGBTQ roster leaders. So that work continues. The candidacy work, we've always provided support for people who are going through candidacy. Before 2009, we worked with maybe 3 to 5 people a year and helped them as they went through our extraordinary candidacy process. Right now, we're working with 40 people who are seeking to become rostered leaders in this church. So just in a couple of years, we've gone from 3 to 5 a year to 40 people. And when I tell you that it's important that you're supporting Brenda's internship, this year there were just about 10 LGBTQ people who were looking for internships throughout the ELCA. Next fall, we know there will be at least 20. That is an enormous leap to find that many congregations that will support, that are good congregations for an out LGBTQ person to serve. So thank you for what you're doing for Brenda, and there's a lot more work to do, so we'll probably come back to you and hear stories about, ask you for stories about how you've made it work with Brenda, but please continue to pray for her. Then the last piece is that we directly support congregations and ministries who have called LGBTQ pastors, and we continue to do that work. And the new piece that we now know we have to be doing is finding more congregations. Because these LGBTQ people are ready to serve this church, but the church is not quite ready for them. There are lots and lots of places that we need to find calls. We have people who are awaiting call. Caleb, who is an extraordinary pastor, and I hope you get to meet him, Caleb waited over 1.5 years for a call, for one reason, because he's gay. He's going to be a remarkable pastor in that congregation, and you're very, very lucky to have him in your conference. But there is great need throughout this church. So I hope that Lutheran Church of the Master can re-engage with this movement through your support of Brenda, through these other rostered leaders who are here in the area. You could be a witness to St. Andrew's, which is not yet a reconciling in Christ congregation, and perhaps some of you who have been involved with that here could do an outreach to that congregation and support Pastor Caleb. I ask that you prayerfully consider continuing annual support to Extraordinary Lutheran Ministries. We're funded only through contributions from individuals and congregations, and we truly need the support in order to keep this ministry going. We need more of it because, as you've heard, the numbers are really doubling. So I just cannot thank you enough for the support that you've given us, the support that you're giving to Brenda this year, for the witness that this congregation is in this community and throughout the church. And I hope to come back here, and I just thank you so much for your time.